With 5 minecarts stacked together and a bow, you can insta-kill anything. We know that the arrow's damage is proportional to its speed, but why is it so fast? If you check the minecart's entity data while it's moving, you can see that its motion is 700 billion blocks per tick, and now it's 9 nonillion blocks per tick. It keeps growing at an exponential rate, and after a while it reaches infinity, and now this minecart can solo all fiction. Obviously these readings don't match with reality, so shenanigans are afoot. And after investigating the source code, I can tell you exactly what's going on. The minecart's physics have not changed since the game's release, so this works on all versions, but the one-shot only works on 1.21 Plus, where they added some minecart changes. So, when minecarts collide, there are two forces at play. The first one pushes the minecarts away from each other, similarly to how all entities push each other. And the second force pushes both minecarts with the average speed of them, and whatever motion they previously had gets multiplied by 0.2. So it disobeys Newton's third law because there's no opposite reaction to this action, and overall we gain more energy than we lose in this collision. And, you know, without Newton's third law, it would be really easy to speed up infinitely, and so here we are. But adding 20% of your speed with each collision is still not enough if you take energy loss into account. And by energy loss I mean minecart's speed limit. We know that minecarts have a speed limit. By default it's 0.4 blocks per tick. On the newest version you can change it with gamerule, and this speed limit is exactly what causes the minecarts to stick together, even though they have infinite speed. The reason they do what they do is the order of operations. So here's a simplified version of this order. First we check what's the maximum minecart speed set to, then we clamp down whatever speed the minecart had before to that maximum speed. Meaning, if the minecart's speed is above the maximum speed, then we set it to the maximum speed, otherwise we do nothing. Next, we divide the speed by 2 if it's on the ground to simulate friction, and then we actually move the minecart's position by whatever speed we just calculated. And lastly, we apply the 2 push forces I mentioned earlier. So it all makes sense now. The minecart appears slow because it moves right after applying the max speed, and the insanely high push velocity gets applied at the very end, which is why it gets displayed. And more importantly, that insanely high speed is used to push the other minecarts. Again, we push the minecarts with the average of both of their speeds. So, in a minecart stack, the minecart that just moved has lost pretty much all of its speed because of the server's maximum speed, but the second minecart still hasn't received an update, so that one hasn't lost its speed, and it's going to push the first minecart with half of its speed. Only after the first minecart's calculations are all finished, the second minecart will do its thing, and that's where the second minecart will lose all of its speed. So, after each tick we end up with half of the speed we started with, and on the second minecart pretty much 0 speed. That is overall a net loss in minecart speed, and indeed it's impossible to create that positive feedback loop with just 2 minecarts. That's why we need more minecarts. With 2 minecarts there's just 1 collision. With n minecarts there is n times n minus 1 over 2 collisions. Now how many minecarts do we need? Surprisingly just 4 are enough. Because there's one more issue that I haven't talked about yet. When minecart A collides with minecart B, then minecart B collides with minecart A, because the game loops through every entity, and inside that loop, it loops through every entity it collides with. So we will need some algorithm to prevent the push force from being applied twice. And here's the algorithm that Minecraft uses. It uses the Y rotation of the minecart, and honestly, I don't see why this would ever work, and fun fact, it doesn't work. The vectors get normalized, so if both minecarts are facing 45 degrees, this will always be true. Meaning, both the push forces will be applied twice. It's very clearly visible that minecarts at a 45 degree angle push each other a lot further. Oh, and if one of the minecarts is at 45 degree angle and the other isn't, then it completely breaks. It doesn't even push once. Unless it does. Try to make sense of it. This algorithm is just so embarrassing that in the new experimental minecart changes, they completely got rid of it, and this is just always true. So minecarts will just receive double the push force. But before 1.21, minecarts did double the push force only when facing 45 degrees. So if you were sitting in a minecart, which for some reason makes you lose speed slower, then just 2 minecarts were enough to go infinitely. But you had to be on rails, where the friction is a lot weaker. I don't need powered rails, I am powered by math. And this is not the first time the 45-degree angle made me faster. Interestingly, minecarts off rails pretty much always go at 45-degree angles, because if the player pushing them is not directly in line with the minecarts, he will apply some tiny force to the side of the minecart. Even if you hold W inside of the minecart, it still goes to the side, whichever one you're facing at. And that force will immediately get propagated to some insane value. With just 5 minecarts, the speed is 2500 times bigger every second. And Mojang has not fixed that at any point. Probably because that would upset the community. And also because it didn't cause any problems up until 1.21. From that version, they made it so the player's speed is equal to the minecart's speed. And when the player throws a projectile, it's equal to the player's speed. So, in 1.21.0 and 1.21.1, you couldn't turn off the experimental minecart changes, you just kind of had to play with them. But no worries, in the newest version you can turn them off, and if you have a Minecraft server, do not use the experimental minecart changes because of the projectile speed. Just watch, I'm gonna throw an ender pearl in one of those minecarts, and if you paid attention during your physics class, you should know that as you approach the speed of light, the time around you slows down, so that's what's happening. I'm kidding, the pearl is just loading thousands of chunks, so the TPS might suffer. And after a while I teleport 84,000 blocks away. And my world file has 1.7 gigabytes. So that's what happens when I hold back. You have to throw the pearl early before the minecarts gain too much speed, because then your game will just crash. The pearl will try to load a chunk 134 million blocks away in both directions, and the server will just give up. So yeah, to crash a Minecraft server you just need a couple minecarts stacked together and a projectile. There's a reason these settings are experimental. Interestingly, the infinite speed projectile turned out to be really useful in speedrunning. The runners started using this only a couple weeks ago in set seed world records. First for the super easy Pearl Cannon, and then to one-shot the dragon. Quick reminder that the G in SSG stands for glitchless. I'm guessing the experimental minecart changes aren't allowed in speedrunning, so you just play in 1.21.1, where these changes are always active. For the non-speedrunning people, I should also mention that you very rarely see speedruns in the newest version, because 1.16.1 had the broken peril rates. So it took us a while to get a version even more broken than that. Also, I should mention that a minecart stack can be pushed, or you can make it go by going inside of the minecart and holding W. But it will go backwards, because you are only sitting inside of one minecart, and so only one minecart goes forward, and then that minecart pushes the remaining 4 minecarts in the other direction, which will propagate the forces and also push that one minecart you're sitting in with them, because it doesn't matter that the minecarts are going in the opposite directions, as long as they are colliding, they will push each other. So in result you have to hold S to go forward and hold W to go backwards. And here's the most useless Minecraft fun fact. If you put a saddle on a pig that is inside of a boat, that is inside of a minecart, and you get on top of that pig, you can fully control the minecart with WASD, but the controls are reverted, and it doesn't work after 1.21. Now let's go to Bedrock edition, because none of this works in Minecraft Bedrock. Stacked minecarts work exactly the same as just one minecart. So is it fixed? No. A simple fix to the Java's minecarts would be to just add a equal and opposite reaction to the minecarts so they obey Newton's third law. What they did in Bedrock is, I don't freaking know, but it just looks like the minecarts are not pushing each other. Not just in a stack, I'm trying to say, minecarts are not pushing each other. Even I can't explain what's going on Bedrock, so subscribe if you just love Bedrock edition. Bye!